What is going on, everybody? We are starting the stream a little bit early before even the end of the Alpine launch event for a couple of reasons, man. These guys, if I'm very honest, I'm going to call them out right from the start for being unprofessional and starting 15 minutes late. Which come on, like no other team started like a whole 15 minutes late. But they're really kind of dragging out the presentation right now. And what we really want to talk about is the car, which to their credit, one of the really nice things that they've done is they kind of did a bit of an overview of the
Yeah,
changes that
yeah.
they brought to the table for the 2023 season, which nobody else really talked about. So I do appreciate that, despite their unprofessionalism and being late. And what we have here really is Alpine's new car. So, Joe, give us your thoughts. What do you think of the new car on kind of first blush? What do you think of the livery?
I mean, to be honest with you, I like it. I
Yeah,
like it a lot more than last year's Alpine car because the pink and the blue is not overpowering each other. So and it's got that
yeah.
black exposed carbon fiber. So I feel like it's a more balanced livery.
I would agree. I mean, the pink is just in general, it's a horrible shade of pink, For the people who are not Americans but are tuning in, we have this stuff that helps settle your stomach called Pepto-Bismol here.
Mhm.
And it's this color of pink, and it's not a pleasant stuff. So really, I've always had an issue with this pink. But I agree with Joe. Like, this is the most balanced I think they've ever done the livery. You know, it looks nice. It's not
Yeah,
overpowering
it's not.
the
It
car.
looks. It's not. It doesn't hurt my eyes. That's
Right.
the first things.
Most definitely. It definitely doesn't hurt the eyes. As you mentioned, there's a large amount of just raw exposed carbon fiber,
I
which I
feel
think is also helping to balance
it's
it.
yeah. I mean, it's a trend for 2023 because the
Hmm.
weight of the car has been decreased.
Hmm.
The maximized weight that you can have on the car has been decreased. So of course, all the teams are gonna find out a way to save weight. And first things, it's the paint, it's the livery. So
Always,
yeah,
always. And I like it, honestly. I'm a very big fan of exposing just the carbon fiber.
mhm.
Clearly, Mercedes did it best.
I mean, they said it. I mean, I hate to say we are in the Alpine presentation, but they said it yesterday, 2 days ago. The main reason that they went back to black livery is because saving weight, and that
Yeah,
kind of ties back into the original
the
original
silver
the
arrows.
silver
Yeah,
arrow concept. It's because it's
yeah.
silver. It's metallic. It's
It's
actual
the raw
car.
material
Yeah,
underneath the paint. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's definitely very interesting. And to Alpine's credit, they said in the presentation that they are going to be underweight, which is an impressive feat, really,
Yeah.
to their credit.
Hmm.
Now, looking at the car, oh no, I'm going to save that last Twitter page. Just actually, let me just show it to you. I love it because the lady who's presenting is just like, "Are you excited?" And the crowd just was like this, just like,
I mean, like for me, I'm not. I didn't have that much feelings than Sharif has
yeah,
because I'm just working on my own stuff and just have it
yeah,
as a
yeah,
background. But I can see why because when we are in our center, when we are in doing I mean, it's in school, but our presentation is a professional driven presentation.
Yeah.
All our instructors, our boss, basically. I mean, that's what we call it, our boss. It's industry professional, and they're gonna hate on us if we get late, if we have weird presentation style, or like like
Or just being late, man. Like
yeah, just
when
being late in
I
general. Yeah,
dude, when I was working with a Brazilian consultancy and we were at General Motors to give them a presentation of our findings, we couldn't tell them wait. You know what I mean? We're not, you can't say, oh, no, 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 give us 15 minutes. You know, like,
yeah. No,
like it just,
I totally get where you're coming from. But for me myself,
yeah.
I don't really have that much of a bad feeling other than just being
Mm.
late, because I've been late there in the presentation.
Hey, man.
But yeah,
But
like
here, looking at the front of the car, what are your thoughts about it? I mean, it's definitely different than a lot of the other cars we've seen
it's more general. I feel
thus
like
far.
it's more general looking Formula One car, but in a good
Yeah,
way.
well,
It
it it definitely feels more generic, especially after the
the
Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
But for me, like 1 to 100. Like for me, I like it for 70% of the car,
okay,
the
fair
look of
enough.
the car. Yeah, but I don't know if we're gonna get into deep of how the aero works. But in general shape, I like the car. Like I like
Mm,
how the car look, and I like the livery look. But
yeah.
70%.
For me, there's definitely some interesting things that are happening here that we aren't seeing necessarily across the board with from like a technical perspective,
Mhm.
right? One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is this fourth plane element right here, and their shaping of their fourth plane, along with the aggressiveness, is very different than the other teams. Uh, it's nowhere near as aggressive as we've seen with some of the other teams,
Yeah.
and it seems to be more subtle than
Mhm.
because the universal kind of element is like this fourth plane seems to be shaped much more aggressively for airflow in order to direct air over and in towards these intakes.
Right.
But there seemed to be the most subtle, I would say. Like if you were to look at the AlphaTauri or
Mhm.
um, any of the other teams for that matter, other than Mercedes, theirs seems and appears to be the most low key, you
Right.
know. Um, Even digging deeper into that, what is interesting is they do seem to have a very similarly thick lower plane, just like the Mercedes did, along with being one of the only other teams
Has
to
that
have some
feature.
sort of
Yeah.
yeah, some like nostril element on the front,
Yeah.
which I'm sure they're using for sensing and
And even
gathering
air.
data.
Yeah, even air going in through the suspension components
Hmm.
and stuff. But
What I'll also say is that the nose feels a lot broader, feels a lot wider
mhm,
than some of the teams, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so we have this more sort of subtle fourth plane element, a bit of a wider nose, and also some amount of like sculpting of the lower
Mhm,
wing,
right.
which again, if you compare it to the Mercedes was mostly flat the whole
And
way
but
through.
Mercedes is more wider, the whole thing from left and
Yeah,
right. It's more wider
yeah.
and it's more aggressive. But also I want to point out, first of all, we said it I remember what I said it or you said it. The force plane is only here for 2023 season, but I want to apologize for the viewers. We actually wrong because 2022 season already have the force plane the force plate.
Was it all the cars or
Yeah,
just some of
yeah.
the cars?
I
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the cars has force plate. So,
Okay.
but last season it's just more settled. It's not like
Mm.
crazy. But this
Mm-mm.
season, actually, they take it to another level of shaping
Yeah.
the plate, shaping the rear front wing to direct air because like I feel like every single team last season it's trying to do experimental setup
Yeah, most
because
definitely.
it's a brand new formula. So this season they use that setup, they use the data transfer it into this season. So that's why we're
Mm.
seeing a lot of dramatic design, aerodynamic
Yeah.
design.
Fair, fair. What also like is catching me about the front end of this car, and there's a few things that have really like kind of stuck out to me about the design of this car versus others, is how squared off
Yeah.
the shape is of the intake for the side pods.
Mhm.
Um, we have seen some, kind of more vertical elements here on the side, across the teams, but definitely a lot like wider and narrower. This feels almost like a square, in comparison to some of the other teams.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that's going to impact airflow, aerodynamics, but also cooling, because we know that Renault, at least last season, was having reliability issues
Oh
with their
yeah.
power unit.
Yeah.
You know, so I would have, if I would have placed a guess, I would have expected them to increase the size of their intakes to kind of work on the cooling side a little bit more, but uh, they claim they have achieved some greater efficiency there.
Yeah. And they do
So,
say that their engine has more they redesign a little bit on their engine department, and then they
mhm,
test the engine in substantial conditions in the dyno.
mhm,
So it's there as a proof. Maybe
yeah,
they are better this season, but we'll see as the time goes. Because on the racetrack,
yeah,
you never know what's gonna happen.
yes, exactly. The dyno and the racetrack are two
It's different.
very different
Yeah.
things.
And I also want to point out, I want to go back to the front wing just for a minute.
Yeah,
The end plate on the side end plate on that front wing, the top end plate, it's so.
yeah,
I think they are the only team this season are doing the tilt up,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and Red Bull, Ferrari, all those teams is all flat. Yeah,
yeah.
right
You
there.
can see it
Yeah,
really
right there.
like dramatically
Yeah,
here.
and I'm pretty sure that's for airflow as well, to direct airflow to the rear, the front.
These
Yeah, that.
guys right up
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
and
wheel
then
covers.
yeah, the wheel cover, and then going back to the side pod,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now we can go back to the side pod a little bit.
Yeah, so the side pod is one of the things that caught my eye,
Mhm.
actually. And you can see it most dramatically here. Let's get it a bit zoomed in. So they've done a unique take on almost the hot tub
Yeah,
side pod.
I was gonna say people are trying to, I mean, not copying, but use the use that kind of similar concept
Hmm.
and implement into their car. Like all the teams are
But
doing
theirs
almost the same
is the
thing.
most contoured. Like,
Yeah,
look at how this, bulges in and out, and theirs also seems to be very shallow.
yeah, yeah. And also, it seems to have two different type of carbon fiber.
Yeah, yeah. It's this contrast
Yeah,
of this section right here is really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I want to see it on track to see what it is. But if I'm, but it or maybe it's two different type of carbon fiber construction for that specific area.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It definitely seems, I mean, you can see the weave in these sections
Right.
here, and it's a very tight,
Yeah.
very like narrow weave,
Yeah.
whereas the weave over these vents is incredibly wide
Yeah.
for a car
Mhm.
like a car at this level of performance.
And
So
the thing is, it's only that area, other than
yeah.
any other parts. That's the only area that has that kind of feature. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering, because is it because the substantial heat that is generated from the car that has to withstand, the carbon fiber has to withstand the heat, or anything, or like more smoother
See,
surface, or
no, and well, that's the thing, right? Like typically with carbon fiber is an excellent like
yeah,
heat insulator,
yeah, yeah,
and the weave shouldn't. I mean, I don't know the deep science of carbon fiber. I do have a fair amount of experience working with it, but to my knowledge, the weave doesn't impact it that dramatically,
yeah. So
right?
I'm not sure why they did it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but I know there's got to be people that is analyzing this type of stuff that we will have to dig in more deep later.
Yeah, and what's so interesting too, if you look at the cut line, there's a cut line right through
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
It comes down here, and then it cuts across here and then up. So you're getting multiple weaves of carbon fiber within one single body panel section.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's again very atypical.
Very
And
interesting. Or maybe it's just the camera. Like it's showing.
no, no. You picked it up. You can see it even from this view, right?
Yeah.
Like if we zoom in here, you can see that that's a distinct section of
It's different.
different weave.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different.
So I don't know.
It's
An
interesting.
interesting decision for
It's
sure.
interesting. Yep.
But really, for me, what caught my eye is just the sort of kind of insane contouring that's happening with this sort of um, interior section of the side pod.
Hmm.
And we seem to have a little bit of an outlet here, which is meant to take like air down along the surface. It's all going to be, like downforce generation and controlling the airflow. But typically, when we've seen these sort of negative cavities within the side pod, they tend to be very smooth, whereas this one feels very like bumpy in comparison, for lack of a
Yeah.
more eloquent way of putting
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And it
Um,
seems like the surface is not, like you say, it's not smooth throughout the whole side pod.
yeah,
It's
like
weird. It's really weird.
it feels almost like a river,
Yeah.
you know. It feels very organic, but I've got to assume that it's incredibly functional. Else, why would they have done it?
I mean, things.
Um,
We'll tell next week.
yeah,
Next week is
absolutely.
the Bahrain testing.
And then, we see the side floor. There isn't much kind of being
Mhm.
shown off here, but it definitely seems like they've done extensive, underfloor revisions,
The front of that underfloor looks dramatic. Like it's got
Yeah,
a lot of air control on that side of that part of the underfloor that will
yeah,
direct
right up
air back
here.
to, yeah, that will direct air throughout the car. And
But
also
I
that's
have to
ground
admit,
effect. That's the part
yeah,
of the ground effect feature. Yeah.
I definitely expected more sort of
Wavy form.
contouring and
Yeah.
surface transitions all throughout here,
Hmm.
which we were seeing from many of the other teams, but theirs seems to be more simplistic. I don't know if this is a strategy for when they're showing the car. They are not trying to give up too much of what they've
Probably.
done,
I mean,
you know?
Ripple does that all the time.
True.
Yeah.
You know?
So
But it definitely looks a lot smoother and a lot more sort of, for lack of a better way of putting it, basic than like what we
Mhm.
saw from Mercedes or
Right.
Ferrari
Yeah,
or
for sure.
AlphaTauri,
Yeah.
you know.
Theirs looks
Um,
a lot more dramatic, looks a lot more functional
agreed,
driven. Yeah.
agreed. You know, and you can even see it here. It's so subtle in comparison,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
Now,
very flat in
yeah,
comparison.
yeah, yeah. Now going over towards the rear suspension and engine cover area, you know, it is interesting that they mentioned that they switched over from a pull rod to a
Or
push
to
rod,
shut. Hmm.
and they did so with the purpose of saving weight and really trying to
And
maximize the effectiveness of the rear.
I think it's also repackaging the engine a little bit so that
Mhm.
they can get even more efficiency airflow on the engine. And that will kind of tie back to what we were talking about last season. Their engine is not reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, most definitely not. And but what we are seeing is a bit of this, you know, muscular surfacing like we're seeing across the board actually this
A lot of
season.
the teams are doing the same thing.
Yeah, this sort of bulging surface right here in conjunction with a dramatic tucking in leading up to the rear wishbones.
Mhm.
And all of this is I'm assuming to create really dramatic airflow control as it exits through the rear of the car. Um, one thing that's very interesting, and I'm not entirely clear if it's happening or not because the pictures are starkly lit, but it looks like there's almost like a crease right here
Mhm.
because when you look at it from this perspective, let me get us right over it. Look, it looks like there's a surface transition right here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
Are you
we'll have to
seeing
see
what I'm
it. Yeah,
seeing?
yeah. It's more darker and looks like a shadow.
It does. It does. And so that's also a very curious feature, you know?
So for that, we have to see on track because the picture doesn't tell that much detail because it's all dark and stuff. But I
Yeah.
see what you mean. It looks sort of like a air intake, like
Yeah.
air outlet basically that it's
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
top of the
exactly.
car. Yeah,
So yeah, it's not really clear like what's kind of going on right in this section.
yeah.
So I'm very
We'll have to
curious
see it on
about
track.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now, also, like unlike any of the other teams, and they kind of mentioned it, they're doing this dramatic shaping of the lower wing element, you know,
yeah.
versus a lot of the teams.
And they also
And
flat on top, like
exactly, there's no central divot
yeah,
like you've pointed out in the past with some of the other cars. Uh, so it's definitely a very interesting aerodynamic package. We are seeing a lot of differences actually here with the Alpine versus some of the other vehicles on the grid.
yeah.
Uh,
And the
it,
rear wing, I feel like Mercedes is the only one that is doing that rear wing with the pointy end.
yeah. Well, yeah,
And
they're doing like what a lot of people are continuing carrying over
right,
is this little extension
yeah,
down
yeah.
here.
So
Mercedes is the only one who broke that, like you were
yeah,
saying.
so time will tell which one is better and which one is not.
Hmm.
As far as airflow goes and creating turbulence, creating clean dirty air in the back of the car.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's very interesting because I mean, you have to assume that some of the solutions that Mercedes has is because of how fundamentally different their core
Right.
aerodynamic concept is,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the rest of the teams are following a much more kind of conventional line.
Conventional. Yeah.
Yeah. But these guys definitely have some key differences, like just even the flow
Hmm.
of this mass from the halo over to this shoulder section is very different than a lot of the other
Yeah.
teams that we've seen thus far.
Yeah. 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 For
Um,
sure.
so I'm very curious to see how this is going to perform on the track in comparison to the midfield.
Hmm.
You know,
But
um,
overall, like I say, I like the car like
mm,
better than last season because the car looks very balanced. It feels like a well balanced car, and
yeah,
me team. So
yeah, most definitely. I'm yeah, I'm very curious to see how it is going to perform. How is it going to fare
fair.
versus like the midfield?
Yeah,
Um,
we're gonna have another live next week for
yeah,
the testing. So that we'll get some answers.
yeah. It's I but I agree with you. I think the overall flow of the
Yeah,
car feels very balanced,
yeah,
feels very
very tight. Like the whole package feels tight and
yeah,
feels like s- not strong but tight, like compact, tight. I don't,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't,
yeah, yeah.
I can't think of a better word of explaining.
No, there doesn't seem to be a single element that I mean
Aside from that,
it's
different type of carbon fiber that we assume.
yeah. There doesn't seem to be a single element that stands out as
Dramatic.
obviously very strange or
Yeah.
out of place, except for that, like you said, that
Mhm.
that contrasting carbon fiber
Yeah, that
right
one.
here over
Yeah.
the engine cover.
Yeah. But
Um,
if you look closely, the actuator on the DRS, it's the same.
right.
It looks like the same carbon fiber. So I don't know if it's the photos or like lights or
No,
spotlight maybe.
it is 100% a wider weave carbon fiber for sure. Like there's no question about it. Uh so there are gradings in carbon fiber like 1K, 2K, 3K and so
Mhm.
on,
Yeah.
which indicate like the nature of the weave, right?
Now
And
that's now like the what's the difference between all those grade of carbon fiber then?
so usually it has to do with potential strength, but it's also some of it is for aesthetics, some of it's for strength. A lot of where the strength from carbon fiber comes from is not necessarily just the amount of fibers, but also the directionality
Yeah. Yeah.
of the fibers,
Yeah.
right? So you can really kind of control how carbon fiber performs based on how you do the weaves, right? So it is interesting because these are not like this section is not terribly
Important.
structural,
Yeah, it's
right?
surface. It's a surface.
Whereas this is very
Yeah.
structural.
So I can tell they use different type of grade carbon fiber for that typical area because that's DRS actuator
Yeah.
for strength. But for that surface on the side part, I don't have a clue
Yeah,
of
yeah, and
why they are
it's
doing the same, using the same carbon fiber as the actuator.
yeah, it's that's the only kind of curious element about the whole car, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and I
Um,
think that might be a key feature, or that might be a feature that people, other teams will look at, or FIA will look at to see are they illegal, are they legal, or are they using something strange.
it definitely seems at the very least different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you're always going to use the best elements for their purpose in a vehicle like an F1 car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they didn't make the decision casually at
Yeah, for
all,
sure.
you
For
know?
sure. And maybe
Uh,
like maybe other teams are doing it because maybe other teams maybe we can't see it because other teams' car has colors on top. So maybe you know
yeah,
maybe other teams are using the same thing.
it's possible, but it definitely is. I mean, when you look at the entirety of the vehicle, it definitely is one of the few places where you are seeing that
Yeah.
distinct contrast,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's about it. I mean, what
Yeah.
else
That's
can we really say about the car, you know?
nothing really. I mean, it's like we said before, it's very conventional and it's very it feels tight in package wise and it feels
Yeah.
balanced. Um, Others will have to see on track to see how it performs and
Yeah.
how it
I will
compete with
say
others.
it doesn't look as much of an extreme challenger,
Yeah,
especially after seeing,
Mercedes.
Mercedes and Ferrari,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But we'll see if these guys can start pushing up towards
I mean, they do
you
say their goal is still P4 on the grid as far
yeah,
as constructors goes. So, like by that means they are starting. They wanted to work slowly to climb up to the top. So that's
yeah,
their goal.
yeah, most definitely. Alrighty, guys, we are gonna call it there. I have a meeting in about 13 minutes.
And
So
I'm just working
I
on my own stuff.
but we thank you for dropping in and checking out our overview of the Alpine 523 and
stay stay tuned with us for next week's I mean next week and next week is going to be starting of the season. So we're gonna have a few live and every week and videos every week. So stay tuned with
yeah,
us and we will announce on the YouTube channel.
absolutely. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. Peace.
Peace. Peace. Peace.